Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Anti-Stall Racing League. We are here for the IMSA Series, race number 5 from the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, or shorthanded, Monza. I, Clever, one of your commentators, I am joined by the ever-lovely Edward. Long time no speak, back to the series, back to the league. How's it going, mate?
It's been a long way, really. Really so much into school and all these things, and I really missed doing this. Last time I commentated, I think it was in Monza, and after that we were just talking, we've got into the iRacing not top 10 highlights, so hopefully it's going to be a race that mental that we're going to go there again. Obviously we are here at Monza, it is a pretty mental track, and I'm sure that the race is going to be just like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, we hope that here, obviously, in the IMSA series, a little bit different from what you've commentated on before. Obviously, we've got the whole multi-class element, two cars on track at the same, well, two different classes of cars, I should say, on track at the same time. There's lots of different manufacturers in GT. We've got Lamborghinis, we've got Porsches, we've got Mercedes, BMW, and also Ferraris here, all represented within the GT3 class. And you said it was Monza. It's a little bit chaotic. It's known for being chaotic. Obviously, a lot of these drivers, especially in quali, we're seeing it already, trying to battle for that slipstream. They don't want to be in front of anyone else. They don't want to have clean air because they all want the slipstream because it's very important, obviously. But, yeah, I mean, we're hoping, as you said, last time out we were in the not top 10, so let's try and get into the top 10, hopefully. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Obviously everyone is searching for the slipstream, but the main difference from obviously the open wheel series is the fact that you have 30 minutes of qualifying, so you can get a good lap even without slipstream. Obviously it's a massive help, so I'm sure that everyone will just search for having a tow on a straight line, especially that we're here at Monza. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see how will these drivers pan out. I'm curious if any LMP is going to get an advantage from the GT being ahead of them, as I'm just seeing a car going already straight there in that one.
Yeah, miss the braking point turn one, and you decide, you know what, I'm not going to make the corner, I'll just go straight on. Let's try and avoid it the best we can. I don't want to, cause any incidents. But in terms of how qualifying works here, the way that it works is it's split qualifying. So we've got the GTs go out for half the session, and there's a changeover period, and then you've got the LMPs that will come out afterwards, as there seems to be a bit of carnage happening in the background if we're on board with Christian Glamser, who I believe is one of the first people out on track on an actual timed lap. So it'll be interesting to see, obviously, is he going to set the pace? We know Glamser has been quick recently. Adam Hedgecock as well, putting in some great performances for his team, and it's one of those things that the Mercedes around here, in other titles, I'm not going to mention which, but in other titles has always been strong. In iRacing, it seems like the Mercedes isn't as strong as you would normally consider it to be. The Mercedes has quite a big, powerful engine, usually. So I'm not sure whether or not iRacing have done anything, obviously BOP-wise, to change that, to change the flavour of, the balance of performance within the class, because it's something that all sim racers want, right? They want every car to be equal, if possible. And it's something that within sim racing I feel like we can achieve, due to the fact that we don't have, we don't have all of the real life stuff going on. It's a little bit easier for us to BOP something in the sim world than it is real life. But Glamsetter, as we said, setting the pace so far. Fabio Ponta, though, already on an amazing lap for that Leo Racing team. And again, this is something that we've seen lots of at the moment, is the Leo Racing guys. Just to fill you in, if you haven't been watching with us before in the IMSA series, welcome in. If it's your first time, hit the subscribe button, follow along, and we also will always welcome new people. But the Leo Racing team, those are the ones you've got to watch out for in terms of who's going to be near the top. So you've got Leo Racing teams in GT, and you've also got it in LMP. And on screen for you, there's today's race control team. We've got Paolo Lopez, Kevin Stam as your stewards, and then Andy Tapman, the race director. We'll give a wave to them. We'll say hi. we like our race control team. Obviously, can't go racing without them. But yeah, in terms of who we see up near the top in GT, we look at Raul Suarez. Basically, any of the guys driving a Porsche, usually up near the top, it feels like.
You were just talking about the balance of performance. So seeing so many Porsches up there at the front, I'm seeing the top three is just Porsches. Then we have two Mercedes there on the top and the Ferrari just in 8th place. So I think that it's not really the Mercedes is the problem as much as the Ferrari. I think that the feeling that you get from the Ferrari is that it's not as quick maybe as the Porsche, but obviously we're in Italy, maybe they will just have a small advantage because they're at the home track.
Yeah, it's the home field advantage. It's like the Mercedes and the Porsches get an extra 15 brake horsepower around Nürburgring, for example. It's one of those things that I think the way that the Ferrari is in terms of as it's balanced as a car, it does very well on circuits that require a very stable car through a lot of twisty corners. It's very nimble. It's quite agile. In comparison to a lot of other cars, I think the only car that really matches it in terms of agility is the Porsche. The Porsche, obviously rear-engined as well, or mid-engine, depending on how you want to define it. It's still, again, very, very nimble around circuits like if we ever went to Suzuka, which I don't think is on the calendar because I think we went to Fuji last week. But circuits like Suzuka, maybe even Silverstone, the circuits that have those sort of Maggots, Beckett's, S's style corners, you'll find that the Porsche actually manages to gain quite a lot of speed in comparison to a few of the other cars, and the Ferrari, again, does very well in those sorts of medium speed corners. So through the Lesmos, for example, the Ferrari, very, very good. Through the chicanes, maybe it feels a little bit clumsy. But it's also very balanced in a car. It's quite planted. Understeer a lot. It's something that, even in F1, I think Ferrari have never gotten rid of. So it seems to just be a Ferrari curse. It's just the understeer that the car can have. But, it makes it nice to drive, at least, because you know that if you push that car, you know what you're getting. You're going to push it into the corner and you know that this car's going to grip. It's just, I might be sending it a bit too hard and the car will just sort of float out to the edge of the track, which is fine. You can drive around that a little bit easier than a car that's a little bit maybe skatey in the rear, because that ends up in a situation that maybe you spin, and especially on a qualifying lap, not something you want to be doing. But it is definitely interesting to see how all the different manufacturers lay out here in just the GT aspect of this race. Obviously, we've got the LMP2s coming up a bit later, and they'll be a little bit faster, around about 10 seconds or so in terms of pace difference, and we'll see that carried over into the race as well. So that time isn't just because they're in qualifying trim, and the GTs don't really have that qualifying trim. They sort of just take the fuel out and go. I think, in terms of, you see in open wheelers especially, you see them with, changing tyre compounds and taking fuel out and changing ride heights and wings, all the rest of it. In GT, it's very much, take the fuel out and they'll go, it's fine. They might find maybe a second over race pace, but that's about it. Yep.
Yeah, and you were talking about the equality of the cars and the balance of performance. I think that the biggest battle will be in LMP2, because that's really where you show as a driver that you are the fastest, because obviously those cars are equal. So if you get the greatest setup and you are the fastest on the track, you win. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. It's, the thing with GT obviously is there's going to be a lot of these cars that are, like the Mercedes is going to have tracks that it's better at than the Ferrari. The Ferrari's going to have tracks that's better than the Porsche, etc. But in the LMP2, they're all the same. They have the same chassis, so it's not even like, in terms of IMSA in real life, you've got Dallara, Orica, Multimatic, I believe, as well, or a couple of just the chassis names. And they all have slightly different characteristics. At the end of the day, they're still LMP2s. They're still, going to perform pretty similar to one another, but they do have slightly different characteristics. Whereas in iRacing, the only LMP2 we have at the moment is the Dallara. Whether or not we get any other, LMP2s that come into it, we'll have to wait and see. We could see Ligier, we could see Orica come in, maybe. That would be cool. But right now, we have the Dallara with the Gibson engine. Everyone's on the same playing field, and it is literally that driver class. I think that's why we see a lot of success in LMP2, because it is very much like, as you said, you know, you can look at a driver and go, that driver is the best in this type of car. And it's not because their team spent, you know, millions upon millions improving car setup or whatever. It's because they are genuinely that fast. You know, and there's no hiding from the skill in LMP2. You know, you can't just say, oh, but it's fine because my car was like, you know, down a couple of horsepower on this track, so it's, you know, I would have been more competitive if it was, or anything like that. It's, no, everyone is driving the same thing, and you just have to go out there and prove that you are the best.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of drivers actually from esports teams, as we're seeing now. Raul Suarez from the Aspar esports team. It's just beautiful to see how much is esports evolving. You know, I think that before the pandemic, it wasn't such a big thing. Obviously, Formula One created their own esports league that was pretty famous, but obviously in the pandemic, with everyone staying in their houses, I think it has gained so much popularity, and we're seeing a lot of teams and a lot of time put it in every competition, even here and this racing. It's a lot of work, a lot of time that people are putting into it to go great. So it's so nice to see.
Yeah, and it's really, really cool. Obviously, we have the different teams. As we mentioned, we got the Leo Racing team in here. They have teams in both GT and LMP. So the Leo Racing team are kind of working overtime almost, trying to get not only one class of car prepared, but two, because they have to worry about the GT setups and then also worry about the LMP setups. Now, I'd imagine, obviously, you know, they have a team that's properly focused on, you know, everybody has a set class of car they're working on, and they probably have, you know, people who make the setups who focus on just one type of car, and that's their, you know, that's their thing. But this is the level of, like, teamwork that I think we're going to see more of moving forward in terms of what they bring to the table when it comes to league racing specifically. You know, the Leo Racing team, the Aspar Racing team, we've got we've got as well Altitude as well, they're here. You know, there's lots of different teams, and I think eventually what's going to happen is people are going to start recognizing these teams like they do manufacturers in the real world racing. You know,
that would be beautiful, but I think that's a bit stretched. I think that's a bit stretched.
I don't know. I think it potentially.
Go.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like it's one of those things, right, where if it gets big enough, if esports racing gets big enough, and more people start tuning into it and realizing that it exists, and, you know, actually follow along with what's happening, it's, you know, it is where things are moving forward. You know, the sim racing, as much as people want to say, but the cars aren't real, the drivers aren't risking their lives or doing anything like that, at the end of the day, it's still a race. You know, the drivers are still putting on a show, and it is one heck of a show at that.
The cars are not real, but a passion is the same. It's something that I've heard a lot of time. And I remember I was talking about the pandemic. I remember back in 2020 when there was the virtual 24-hour month, there was a mix of real life drivers with esports drivers. And I remember there was one driver, I completely forgot who he was, but he changed his steering mid-race. It just got blocked. Then he just disconnected it, took it out, changed it, connected it, and continued to race. So obviously it had a bit of physical things into it as well.
Yeah, it's not all just, you know, you drive your car around and as long as you don't crash, you're going to have no issues. It's very much you could potentially have, you know, wheel disconnects or PC crashes or, you know, these issues that plague us in terms of sim racing in a similar sort of way that you would get sort of electrical gremlins in you know, the LMP cars, for example. Like, you've seen it before in F1. You know, you've seen people's steering wheels being replaced because there was a connection that was wrong or something like that. You know, it's very it's almost like the way that the actual racing is. It's like the way that the simulation is even. It takes it to that sort of next level of, there's more than just what's happening on the screen, that's going into it. At the end of the day, these people are still, putting money into this. They're still practicing for this. They're putting the time, their effort, and everything into it. And they really want to prove themselves to be the best that they can be in a very competitive environment. The GT qualifying having now come to a close. And you see that the actual timings between those GT guys, all actually really close for the most part. You've got a couple of drivers who are, out ahead. There is a little bit of a gap between, for example, we've got Alessio Bernardi and Victor Roman, who are, 0.3 apart pretty much. But beyond that, it's that's sort of the biggest gap that we have, really, in terms of what's going on.
Eva.
And super competitive.
GT3 qualifying finished, LMP2 just about to start. Here is, we're talking about the driver quality. It is the moment of truth for these drivers. Obviously, here in LMP2, the leading driver in the championship is Iso, and then we have Castellani and Van der Lans. So the battle to the title, it's still close. There are only 7 points between the first two drivers. So I'm really looking forward to see how it's going to pan out after the race in Monza.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we take a look at these drivers and we want to see, who can do the best qualifying lap times, and especially in cars like these prototypes. They are so quick, even by, maybe they're not F1 fast, but they're still so quick, and you've got to be so precise with these cars. That, for example, Lorenzo, right now, who's on our screens, drives for the Leo Racing Team. We've already said the Leo Racing Team, this season, they've just been on another level, it feels like. There's only been a few people who have really managed to catch up with them. But it's that whole thing of, these drivers, they put the time in, they put the effort in, and they really want to show that they are the best. And when you take a look at sort of what Lorenzo has done this season, you can really see sort of where that effort pays off as we're going on board with Lorenzo Castellani. And we're going to see just how late he breaks into turn one here. We're used to F1 breaking around the 100-meter board, and again, similar sort of thing in these P2s, and you want to try and avoid the curbs as much as you can, especially that inside on the left hand of the first chicane. It can really unsettle the car. Obviously, you've got it's quite a big car, this LMP2. It's not slim by any means, and it means that obviously any inertia that you have, any change of direction, weight transfer, as you see him just absolutely fly over those curves. No respect, but hey, if you want to go fast, that's how you need to do it. You need to nail everything. And you'll see they're trying to use as much of the track as they can as well. We say that the cars get upset over the curbs, but I think for Monza, you almost set the car up to do that, right? That's kind of what you want to do. You want to be able to fly over those curbs because that's ultimately going to get you the most time. Obviously, you've got to be careful of the big sausage curbs here as we go into probably one of the best corners in motorsport, I think. I don't think that's unfair to say. I think Ascari is... it's legendary in its own right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very easy to lose the car through there. As we're seeing Lorenzo Castellani going through Curva Parabolica, another very interesting corner, and it's very popular, I think, worldwide. As we're seeing now on the straight line, finishing the lap, is going to be a 136, 134.9. That's very good. I think it's the fastest lap that we've had overall.
I think
even in practice, I don't think
maybe he went slightly quicker in practice. I think, but it wasn't by much. That's definitely a very competitive lap time for sure. That is, another level. But look at how close the top three are. They're all Leo Racing drivers, by the way. So you'd expect them to be somewhat closer, being teammates, but to be a 10th off each other. It's a bit ridiculous.
Teamwork makes the dream work, you know. So they are doing this absolutely great, putting their cars in top 3. But there's not a huge gap to the car in 4th place to Frank Smith, which is a great thing. We're having a battle for the win. There is not a one-team show here in Italy, at least.
Yeah, and we've seen it before. We saw it at Daytona. We saw it at there was a couple of other circuits that we've seen it at throughout the season, obviously. We've had now 4 races. This is the 5th. So the fact that the championship, you're starting to get an idea as to which drivers to expect to do well. Dylan van der Lands is another one who currently I don't think he has the best qualifying result. I think is that him down there in 6th at the moment? Or 7th?
We have Sebastian van den Heuvel.
So yeah, Dylan currently in P7 then. And, you know, again, we know he's quite quick. You would expect him to potentially improve on his lap time. Maybe it was one of those things where he got potentially held up a little bit on his actual flying lap, or he was, I don't know, maybe just putting in a banker, you know, and then he can just gun it every single lap for the next, you know, rest of the qualifying session. As we see, he does come in and do a 135.3, and again, look at how close that qualifying is.
134.6 for Lorenzo Castellani. He has improved very good, 3/10 of Carlo Labati. So I was talking that it's not a one-team show. Now it's a 6/10 gap between 1st place and 4th place. That's a little bit too big.
Yeah, it's you're starting to get to the point now where you're thinking, okay, I feel like any of the other drivers, you're like, okay, Leo's racing team at the moment, I mean, they're on another level, aren't they? They are just, you know, you look at Lorenzo Castellani putting in that 134.6, and you're thinking to yourself, how can I even get into the 134s? First of all, you know, if you're as an example, Frank Smits, right? You've done a 135.2, right? You're now thinking, right, where do I find the 3/10 to get into the 34s? And then I also need to find another 4/10 on top of that before I can even challenge pole right now. Is that just in slipstream? I don't think so. But
No,
Frank Smith is currently improving their lap, so
Look at
maybe.
him. No slipstream for any of these 3 cars, and they're not helping each other, surprisingly. I wonder what would they do if they would have slipstream one from each other. As talking about the slipstream, we are seeing Dylan van der Lands now having a slipstream. But yeah, it's a huge advantage for the Leo Racing team. I think that we need some balance of performance in this class as well. Anyways, I remember you were talking about the cars being big. Well, it's a huge surprise if you see one of these cars, LMP2 or LMP1 in real life. They're surprisingly small. They look big, but they are just not.
I think comparing them to the GT cars, I think it gives you a sense of how they are in terms of size. They aren't tall cars. They're very low to the ground, very, you know, compact. Especially like if you see an LMP overtaking the BMW here later on in the stream, which I'm sure we will. Obviously, the LMPs are going to lap the GTs a few times around the 1 hour race that we have later today, and you know, you'll see that size difference. Yeah, the LMP in terms of size is mainly in the length of the car, right? You know, it's not exactly a, you know, small compact like smart car or like a Kia, you know. it's got a little bit of length on it to obviously equate for that shark fin and the engine in the back. You know, mid-engine is sort of how most of these prototypes are, most of these race cars are. So a lot of the, as we see the No Limits racing team there, doing a little bit of slipstream juggling. So Dylan van der Lands obviously getting that slipstream off of his teammate in, is that Wessel? Or Vessel? Is that how you pronounce that? I think my pronunciation isn't great, but I'm sure he'll correct me at some point.
Yeah. You know, I remember in the Formula 1 series, which happened, I think there were 3 seasons of the Forma series. There were a lot of strange names that I had to pronounce. But that's the fun. That's the fun of commentating, you know, going through these situations. And And yeah, as they said, I really missed it. So some slipstream again, talking about Leo Racing team. Carlo Labati doesn't like being in third place, so he searches for help from Max Voss, the
And
Luxembourg,
has it helped?
Netherlands, Belgium driver. He's having 3 nationalities there.
I think that's just how it turns out on the on iRacing, I believe. I'm sure he will then inform us as to which one he actually is. And
there's a contact.
bit of a
There's a
snap
contact.
there.
There was contact, I think. Carlo Labati has crashed with Max Voss. He
I don't know
braked very
what's.
late and has gone straight into the Benelux car.
Not sure exactly what went on there, but it looked a little bit like Carlo was trying to give almost a hurry up to him a little bit, and it's just being like, hey, I am, a little bit quicker than what you've able to do right now, and I'm on a lap, I want to go for it. Almost looked like he was going to make the move up the inside, but held off a little. And of course that incident is going to be under investigation. The steward's obviously looking into those things, and we'll see. I'm sure the race control will have lots of things to review throughout the race, especially with it being Monza. We hope it's clean, but multi-class, turn 1, nerves get to you a little. How do you think you'd be as a driver in this situation if you were on the grid in the LMP2 and you were like, say, mid-pack around like where, for example, Carlo is, Frank is, Max is, you're around there, what would you be thinking going into turn 1?
Obviously crashing everyone and getting in first place. No, on a serious note, obviously you have the chance to make a very big dive bomb there in turn 1, and I think it's here and in Mexico that you have the biggest chance to win a lot of positions at the start because of the way the turn 1 is actually positioned. So I'm sure that we will see some crazy moves up there. Anyways, I'm seeing the weather that is pretty cloudy, and I'm wondering if did rain actually came to iRacing, because last time I checked, I think it was in August, and they said that they want to make rain in iRacing, but it seems that it's not happening yet.
Yeah, so from what we know, as just people who play iRacing, and obviously I don't have any special contacts within the iRacing staff team, but from what we've seen in like forums and stuff, it's very much like the whole game production cycle. It's a we're working on it, we'll give you more information when we have it type deal. So it's a we've seen it in action, we've seen screenshots and little clips. If you go into the iRacing forums, you can probably search for those, but we have seen bits and pieces that they're definitely in the process of working on it. But I think the thing is with iRacing specifically is there's a lot of things in iRacing that you want to get right. This is very much simulation. People are paying a lot of money to be here and race on your platform, so you want to give them the quality that they're used to. So with rain, you need to get it right straight off the bat. I think iRacing need to focus on just getting it solid, getting all the cars to react how you would expect them to in these wet conditions, and varying different lines, I'm sure, is something that they've already looked at. And it's one of those things that rain is so difficult to incorporate in a game or sim or whatever you want to call it, because as you say, it's dynamic, isn't it?
And it's so close to simulation, from grass to marbles to how the tire is actioning on the car. Obviously that's so close to perfection that, as you said, with the rain you have to make it absolutely bang to make the game look good. But I remember there was a 24 hours of Spa with the GT3 cars, and they've had a scandal with cars running on the grass and actually being much faster. So that was a very bad thing for the game.
Yeah.
And I think after that they thought, okay, we really have to make this work good in order to regain our popularity back.
Yeah, and it's a coming up to the end of LMP qualifying here, and again, it's just supremely close within the top 4. You know, Castellani, Izzo, Van der Lands, and Labate all insanely close to each other. 2/10 separating the top 4, and then we just have another Vanden Heuvel just comes in as well and puts himself P5 and makes it 5 cars within 0.5 of a second of each other. So it is so close in LMP qualifying, and this is what you want to see. Right, we've got a race on our hands.
Lorenzo Castellani is still on a fast lap, and he set a green for per sector. He might improve, so those 5 cars in 5/10 might go down to 2 cars. But let's see, how will he finish his lap?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw coming out of the chicane, though, he did have a little bit of a grass dip, so that is it. He's going to call it there. I saw that, coming out of the second chicane, he got a little bit onto the... the sand there on the exit, and obviously, you know, if you're on the sand, you're not really going as quickly as you would if you're on the tarmac. You can't really get the power down in the same way. The wheels start slipping and potentially cause a little bit of a scary moment, but even still, you know, this qualifying session, we've seen it, you know, Calvin still apparently on a lap, but I think he's just driving back to the pit lane now. He's not improving at all in any sector, so I think he's just taking it easy, coming back to the pits, and then we'll get the warm-up where we can talk a little bit more about how the championship is and how it's shaped up so far. Obviously, you know, as I say, we've been 4 rounds deep, and the championship fight, at least within the top 3, looks like it is still incredibly close. So it is all to play for. And indeed, Calvin is coming back in.
Straight to the pit lane. Yeah. So this is the qualifying. We don't have a Leo Racing team top 3, but we're having 3 cars in the top 4. Dylan van der Lans breaks the series of them with starting in 3rd place. But I think they might help each other in the race, because obviously being at Monza and having a slipstream that has such a big effect on the cars, that might be a big advantage in comparison to the other cars.
Yeah, and I think it's you know, one of those things that it's always going to be interesting when you have teammates in close proximity to each other. From what we've seen so far this season, especially in LMP, they like to fight each other. They don't like to help each other much. They sort of let themselves get on with it. As we do have the qualifying results up on your screen, we had them briefly for GT, and now we've got them up for LMP as well. And again, it's one of those things where, looking at the cars as they are, it reminds me of how, I believe it was Indianapolis qualifying went. So, I believe in Indianapolis, what happened is we had the Leo Racing team in LMP, same similar sort of setup as we've got here in the qualifying results. We had 2 of the drivers, 1 and 2. We then had Benjamin Seiss, who was P3, and then we had P4, who was another Leo Racing team driver. And when the lights went green, Ben just went for it. He absolutely just went for it. Tried to take all of the advantage he could going into turn 1 and make sure that the Leo guys were pretty much battling amongst themselves. And that's also something that you could potentially do, you know, if you're Dylan van der Lans. If you get a good start, especially considering you're going to be lining up behind Lorenzo, who is obviously going to be leading into turn 1. You would expect anyway. You know, he controls the grid. It's going to be a rolling start for these drivers, so... You know, it's not like you have that sort of, you know, how good is your manual start? You know, how easy do you let off the clutch? How, you know, what is that sort of reaction time like for you? In terms of a rolling start, you typically find there's a little bit less chaos going into turn 1. But yeah, definitely going to be interesting to see how the Leo team play it. Obviously, in GT, the qualifying results are back up on your screen. And all of them are going to be starting behind each other. So we've got them starting on the inside line for turn 1, and the Aspar esports team are going to be starting on the outside line, which is going to make that very interesting indeed, because obviously it's a team battle. Aspar want to beat Leo want to beat Aspar, but they all want to beat each other because it's a race.
Yeah, Aspar wants to beat Leo wants to beat Aspar, and I'm sure that Altitude Esports is going to win, because you know the saying, when to battle the third wins. Yeah, obviously it's a battle of the teams, but also it's the battle of the drivers, because in the championship, especially at the LMP2, the championship battle is between two drivers from the same team, and obviously they will want the win. So I'm really curious. It depends. What will they do? Are they going to battle each other, or are they going to help each other? It's Monza again. The slipstream helps very much, but it's 1 hour of racing and not having multi-class racing. So the GT3 cars are going to play an effect on these drivers as well. I was looking at the chat, and I'm seeing a lot of people saying dive bomb competition. Here we go. So everyone is looking forward to that start. Everyone is looking forward to a huge dive bomb. So I hope they will, they will not be disappointed.
I must admit, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm nervous for the drivers.
Safety car straight away.
I hope not.
we can start straight away with a safety car, like in Formula 1.
I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the way that the rolling starts are going to work is that we'll see a gap between the LMPs and the GTs. So hopefully, if anything does happen in the LMPs, then we can have obviously that gap to avoid incidents, you know, as it's on the screen right now. You know, the LMP2 field is going to have that gap to the GTs, so if the LMP start goes horribly wrong, someone goes for a dive bomb and it doesn't work, hopefully the GTs don't get affected. Is what we're hoping anyway. That's the idea behind it. Is that actually going to be what's happening? It's we'll have to wait and see.
I am most looking forward to the big boy M4 getting passed by tiny LMPs. Well, you're surely going to see that. And
Yeah.
we were talking about the difference between the LMP2s and the GT3s. When the LMP2 is going to pass that BMW, we will really see a difference. It's like that grade 12 student going about close to a first grade student. So
Yeah.
that's going to be the comparison in there.
Although the difference this time is that the grade 1 student is significantly faster than the grade 12 student.
Obviously, smaller is faster, but freshmen, how are they called? Freshmen?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's the US term.
Yeah, in Romania we don't have like that. We have them from grade 1 to grade 12.
Yeah.
So
But they are grading up.
so
It
much
does look
yellow.
like a good field, doesn't it?
So much yellow.
There is a lot of yellow. There is a lot of yellow. But it does look good. I think it looks good. It's nice to see all the cars there, obviously, and you know, again in GT, you're seeing the same thing. It's a train of yellow cars.
And if you look at the back of the grid again, much yellow.
Yep. Yeah, that's still
At least.
as well. So are we saying that yellowy orange / yellow is just like it's the favorite color of IMSA drivers? Is that what we're seeing?
No, we should change the anti-star racing logo into yellow. And you know, shirt thing. Yeah,
at least for IMSA.
We're getting now prepared for the start. We're seeing the lights up there. In the moment when the safety car is going to go into the box, the lights will turn red, and when they will go back to black, that's going to be the start of the race at Monza.
Yeah, and you know, it's again, this is where, as a driver, you're thinking about turn 1, you're thinking about, right, how can I get through? First of all, how can I get through the carnage, because it's Monza? And then secondly, can I make any positions up going into turn 1? It's going to require somebody to maybe get a jump, which is possible. If you can predict when the leader is going to go, you could potentially jump a couple of cars ahead of you. And obviously, you still have to wait until you cross the line before you're allowed to make the pass. But
Yeah.
we will see as we go around the parabolica and we go onto the start-finish line. We're going to see just how well this grid handles turn 1 here at Monza.
Safety car is going to go into the pit lane. So this is it, round number 5. It's about to start. We're still not seeing the lights when it will turn red. I think everyone has just gone away. The leader, now the lights are red, but the leader is already pushing. Hopefully there are not going to be any problems. We're seeing the Leo Racing team drivers being attacked there, so the dive bomb is actually happening. No, it's not. We're not. Oh, there's a spin. There's a spin. I think that's Carlo Labati.
That was the leader, and who else was that? That was the number 70, I believe, number 78, who collided with him.
Lorenzo Castellani, something happened to him because he's losing position. He's now in 5th place, starting from pole position. I think there was a contact, and maybe, just maybe, he has some damage. He's now in 6th place, and he keeps losing more and more time.
GT3s all look good into turn 1. That was actually very well done from all the drivers, as there seems to be a couple of other LMPs that have just been stranded. Frank Smits, one of these LMPs that has indeed been stranded. And again, you look at that incident, and I told you those teammates might fight. I don't think they were expecting to have that sort of how do you call it, that concerto effect of everyone just bunching up into each other. Obviously, you know, the guy at the front starts braking, everyone else behind him has to start braking at the same point, otherwise you get what happened, a collision in turn 1, and now you've got Alessandro Izzo in P1, only gained 1 position, but the car behind him, James Ebram, the number 8, is a very quick driver in his own right, and he's already gained 4 positions off the start because of what happened to all of the other Leo Racing drivers.
Yeah, but this is a way to win the championship. Alessandro Izzo is the leader of the championship right now, and being consistent is the best way to make points. And he just stayed away from any incident. He let Lorenzo and his teammate Carlo Labati crashing, and now he said, "Thank you very much." There was another spin. Let's see.
So this is turn 1, lap 1. So we're going to see exactly what happened here. And we're going to see Izzo, I believe, is that car, the yellow car in the middle. Yep, there's the contact. And you see, he makes it through fine. So it looks like everyone else... I will hold my breath a little bit as I say that. But it looks like everyone else made it through turn 1 okay. It was just those Leo Racing cars. And already, as we see in the background there, Lorenzo Castellani is absolutely pushing like a madman as he had a little bit of a wiggle coming out. Max Voss also had a little bit of an incident. I'm not sure if that was a spin or if that was contact, but Max Voss also having some troubles a bit further down the field. The GT battle obviously still raging on, still very close as always, as some of the other P2s who have had some issues are now also starting to come into it and disrupt the GT battle incredibly early as well. Not something you typically see, but obviously with the LMPs having such a chaotic start, it's enabled now for the GTs to maybe be a little bit disrupted in their race start, but I'm sure once that LMP gets out of the way, these GTs are going to come back through and once again show us that even though there's lots of different types of car here battling on track at the same time, it's still really close racing.
Raul Suarez now is being attacked there by Alessandro Bernardini. Very close there in the battle for 2nd place in the GT3 class. Let's see, the Bernardini wants to make that 1-2 for the Leo Racing team, at least in the GT3. If in the LMP2 they crashed. Alicia Barrosing an LMP car disrupting this battle. Can Bernardini make a dive bomb? He will surely think about a dive bomb, but there's no space through there.
Yeah, that LMP is sort of catching them in all the wrong spots, it looked like, and that was just a bit awkward for that LMP. I would have said the LMP should have been maybe a little bit more committed to actually making the pass there, and enabled actually Raul to have a little bit of a break and just relax for a moment before they get into it. But here we go, turn 1, he does send it up the inside. There is contact there between the two of them. Is a little bit of a push pass from Alessio, but indeed Alessio has gone through. Raul now backed up into his teammate in Victor. Is Victor going to do the nice thing, help him out, maybe back off a touch and potentially push Luigi a little bit further back as well, act as a rear gunner here? It doesn't look like they have many issues amongst themselves here, at least for the Aspar esports team. Looks like they're very much, they know sort of what their plan is, and that plan is to just now chase after Alessio, who had, I would say, a bit of an unfair pass on Raul. I think that's probably fair to say, but you know, as they like to say in the touring car racing, Robin is racing, and they are just gonna move on with it, I'm sure, and that'll be that.
Now, another battle now for P6. It's Christian Glamstetter trying to get a Ferrari, so the Tifosi might not celebrate after this race because the first Ferrari is only 6th place. It's not a great race for them, but maybe there is going to be some drama between the two teams, Leo and the Aspar Racing team, and the Ferrari will just win the race, but it's going to be under attack from the Mercedes of Glamstetter in turn 1. I'm sure there is going to be a move, as there's another battle there in the LMP2 class between Ibram and Van der Lans, only half a second between them two.
Yeah, and always close battling everywhere on track. It's so hard to keep track of everything, obviously. You know, we've got 2 battles going on at the same time in 2 different classes of car. You've got here, we're going to see the teammates, actually, Raul Suarez and Victor, swap positions. I wonder if this is just going to be a nice, easy set pass, and indeed it looks like it is. I believe Raul probably has said to Victor, hey, I probably picked up damage from that pass that I had on, that Alessio made on me. You know, just go for it, mate. I'm going to hold off Luigi the best I can. You just go. You're the quicker driver right now, and then once I get this fixed, if I'm quicker, we'll let each other back through, and we're going to start playing that teamwork game, because we know Leo won't, so we'll use that to our advantage. And hey, it might work, you know, especially considering they're all in the same car. All of the Leo guys are in Porsches, all of the Aspar guys also in Porsches, so they're all in the same car. So in terms of driver ability, again, it's going to be like it is in LMP2, right? It's going to be very close, and it's going to be very much like you have the sort of driver aspect of it, and we see as Raul tries to block as much as he can. It is so close between them. Raul's giving absolutely no room here into Ascari. Is he going to try and make...
That's so close.
So close.
Very close. Very close, but he just takes back. It was impossible to overtake through there to Ascari. It's clear that Suarez is defending for his life, because we're seeing him on the straight line, no space given to his opponent. He pushed him off the track on the grass, but I'm really curious if he picked damage from that contact, because that contact didn't look like a big thing. But if he did, that would be a real shame, because it wasn't a big contact between him and the Leo racing driver.
Yeah, and the thing is it could even be just like a small contact like that could just push your performance down. You know, we know how fragile these cars can be in iRacing, and it's, you know, if he has picked up damage, then that battle is going to ultimately, I think, end up in the way of Luigi's favor, and Raul is just going to try and have to fight as hard as he can, get a gap to his teammate the best that he can. And again, this is the other thing, right? If Raul can get that gap to be larger than a second by the time Luigi passes Raul, then Victor won't have to worry about Luigi having the slipstream, as we see a move here into LMP2. Again, the Leo racing car, that is the number 78 of Carlo Labate, starting to make his way back up through the order, as apparently we do have a crash. Let's see what happened here. This is Thomas Notto in the BMW, number 783, and this is going into, is this the Curva Grande? And he just clips the grass on the outside. I'm not sure.
There's a Leo Racing team car that had
lots of MP2 stuff as well
on the gravel. I think one of them was Alessandro Izzo. I'm sorry, that was Alessandro Izzo, because Alessandro Izzo has lost the lead. He is not in the lead anymore. The car that is leading the race is James Ibram.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a little bit of a touch here as well between Frank Smits and who was that? And then this is Alessandro. So we saw the guy who spun off. Izzo then obviously takes avoiding action.
This is
and yeah, so we'll see here. There is James Ibram, and James has indeed just managed to get through. So James actually in a pretty good situation, all things considered, managed to avoid the incident, and going back live, Alessandro Izzo is already past him. So Izzo has already passed, but
he's gonna come back. He's gonna come back. Oh, so close through there. He had to avoid the GT car and has gone straight in front of him. But James Ibram is now going to keep his position. But he has a good run there to Curva Grande. Straight Variante della Roggia. Let's see, slipstream pushing. He's a bit too far away, I think, to try anything in turn 3.
Yeah, and again, James, he had that position gained and lost it very, very quickly. And this battle between Carlo Labate and Sebastian Van der Heuvel is still raging on. Carlo still not able to really pull away just yet going into the second chicane here. And again, Carlo and Sebastian using as much of the curb as they can. Carlo using a little bit more. Maybe the car is set up to do that, whereas Sebastian's not set up as much, and you see how much time that gained Carlo. And again, traffic now playing a factor. If you can't get through the traffic quickly, and we cut here back towards a crash. This is Aiden Young, the car number 427, so we'll have to see what happens here. And who is that? Is that Max Voss who's coming up near him? Going into turn 1, and yep, there's a touch there. That is the number 33 of Max Voss. Just looks like he was going to go up the inside and then just sort of didn't. It looked like. It sort of just... He just went for it and then just sort of went, actually, maybe not. Maybe it's not the smartest idea. But again...
James Ibram is now very close. But Alessandro Izzo is a very lucky guy, because every time he's under pressure from Ibram, he gets slipstream from a GT3 car. But now they will both have to take a different line through the corner because of the GT cars. But they both managed to go there through the first corners without problems. So still Izzo and then Ibram.
Yeah, and again, this is the wonderful thing about multi-class racing. And these LMP2 drivers might not say it's a wonderful thing. They very much want to just battle it out. But in terms of what these LMPs do for the race, they now have to overtake these slower class cars while also making sure that their own inter-class battle is managed on top of. And you see how much of a difference it can make. Look at the gap that number 5 car now has, Lorenzo Castellani to Dylan van der Lands, just because of where he caught the traffic. And again, we're going to see a big spin here.
There's a crash with the LMP car. There's a crash with the LMP car. Lamert Veda has spun there, and I think he has collided there with Leon.
Would have been, yeah. So that looks like there was some contact there between, who was that? The number 422, who was Vassal, and he manages to avoid it. And 93, Sebastian Van den Heuvel, unfortunately, nowhere to go. And yeah, I think that's the importance of trying to hold your brakes. That's the you gotta make sure that you're on top of it and trying to get off track as quickly as you can if an incident like that happens. Obviously, very difficult to do when you've been spun effectively, as we have the Leo racing cars all battling through here now. All of the LMPs battling these GTs, and again, it's gonna get so close between all these GT traffic. And here we go, the move is finally made. Luigi does manage to get past Raul, and now again we're gonna see these LMPs start to come through as well, interrupt this battle maybe a little bit more. And again, if you're the Leo racing cars, you're obviously going to try and make it as easy as possible to make sure that you can, obviously between classes, you know, the GT guys are going to probably let the LMP guys know, hey, you know, I'm in a battle right now. If you can get involved, try and disrupt the battle. Give me a bit of breathing room. And maybe that's something they'll be doing. Maybe that's something they can't do. Maybe we don't know sort of what their communication looks like within the team. But you would imagine that they have that sort of communication, at least between the GTs and the LMPs, to say, you know, guys, we need to get out of the way. We need to try and make sure that we are, you know, passing safely, because at the end of the day, like, the LMPs and the GTs, if they come together, that could be race over for both of them.
Yeah, exactly. The battles are so close, and especially with these LMPs going by, you just don't know where to look, because it's a battle between the LMPs, and alongside them it's a battle between the GT cars, very close. But again, this is the beauty of the multi-class racing, as the night is starting to settle in here at Monza. Again, another beautiful thing about the series is our having a start in the day and a finish in the night.
Yeah, and it is. It's so cool to see, you know. You start seeing the headlights start to get brighter, you start seeing the track lights come on, and it's a magical thing. It really is. You know, you sit there, and if you're a driver, obviously, you know, your main focus is on the track. But for us as commentators, we can admire the sights. We can admire the lovely sunset in the background as they're driving along. And it's so cool to see, as there seems to be a battle here between the LMPs going both sides. I believe that was Adam Hedgecock. So yeah, a little bit close between the two of them, and the battle is still going on. This is for P8 overall. Frank Smith, and I believe that is Charles Henriksen battling with him. And Frank manages to make the move done, gets the move made clean, and immediately passed.
Sorry, Eva, but I think there's damage to Charles, because he's very, very slow. Look how much time he has lost to Smith. About 1.5 seconds, just like that. As Carlo Labari gets in the 4th place, he gets close now to his teammates again, but Van Heuvel. Sorry, that's not Van Heuvel, that's Van der Lans.
Van der Lans, yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to get a position back.
And again, the thing that Carlo Labari needs to be aware of, right, is his teammate behind him, like Dylan Van der Lans' teammate, is behind him. So if Carlo backs up too much, if he's not driving at the best that he can possibly drive at, then he's going to have to worry about not one car battling him and trying to overtake him. He has to worry about potential teammate tactics going into it as well, because he's going to have two drivers who are both going to probably be communicating with each other, trying to get past him and making any sort of like crazy move that they can, you know, maybe even if it's like a slingshot down the main straight, for example. You know, if Dylan thinks that that Vessel is quicker than him, he's going to very much just say, right, mate, you're on the back of me, I'm going to give you slipstream all the way down the start-finish straight, I'm going to pull off, you go, and you battle Carlo as hard as you can, and then when you're past him, I'm just going to follow you right through. And then Carlo is now not only losing one position, but two, and he's starting to drop down the order very quickly if he backs up the field this much. So he needs to be careful, and he does need to start trying to catch up to his teammate to then hopefully have some sort of support here.
Yeah, but we've seen that teamwork doesn't work. It's as simple as that. Because I thought that before the race, I thought that the Leo Racing team drivers are going to help each other, but they collided in the first lap, in the first corner. So I'm not really sure if they are actually going to help each other. I think they will race for their own, and if they can get Carlo, that's great. If they will not, maybe they will attack each other, who knows. But I think Carlo is actually faster. The only problem is that Van der Lans has the slipstream for him, and he cannot create a big enough gap. And we can see that he's recovering. He's recovering to Lorenzo Castellani. He recovered 1 second in the last 2 laps. At this rate, we might see the two teammates getting close again in about 4 or 5 laps.
And I just want to butt in really quick. Obviously, Ava, you weren't there for Fuji, were you, last week?
No, unfortunately not.
So anybody that did watch Fuji will also know that Leo Racing Team did exactly the same thing on the first lap last week as well.
So potentially, there's going to be some words between teammates after this race. There's going to be some sort of talks, I imagine, if they have debriefs, and they're going to be trying to figure out, you know, what's going on here. You know, how can we avoid these incidents moving forward? But as we say, you know, the Leo Racing Team, as much as they would like to be together as a team, it almost feels like they're battling for themselves and not for the team. And obviously there's no team championship, so I don't think there's any sort of reason for them to battle as a team. You know, it's at the end of the day, the glory goes to the driver, not to the team. You know, you can have all of the thanks for the team, you know, and say, you know, I couldn't have done it without the team. You know, I've got, you know, all of the hard work that went on behind the scenes that the team has managed to help me with. But at the end of the day, it's the driver here that's going to make the difference in this championship. And especially one that's as closely contested as this LMP battle is right now. Carlo Labate and Dylan van der Lans have been battling pretty much the entire race since they got onto the back of each other. They haven't seemed to let each other go yet, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, but if it happens once, then it's okay. But if it keeps happening week in, week out, for teammates to crash, it's going to be the relationship between them is going to start not being as great as at the start. And obviously there is no team championship, but I'm sure that they help each other, because if they wouldn't help each other, they wouldn't be in the same team. So if this keeps happening, it's like a friendship. It just gets broken, because obviously there is no team championship, but they all want results, and if they crash one with each other, it's not great for the morale of all three of them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you almost look at the same team in GT, the Leo guys in GT. The amount of times that we see them battling each other but never crashing. The GT guys seem to be a lot more Alessio Bernardi over Tokyo Drift through the corner. And again, that's something that this Porsche has, is that you'll notice that when the fuel level drops off, obviously with where the fuel tank is in the car and where the engine is in the car, it generates that weirdness in terms of the actual car's balance changes throughout the course of its stint, a lot more than you see the Mercedes do or the Ferrari do, because every sort of, all of the big parts of the weight are all in one place, really. They're not like sort of spread out like it is in the Porsche. And it can mean that later on in your stint, you know, you're used to driving a car that's maybe a bit sort of understeery, but later in the stint, that understeer turns into oversteer, as we saw through the Lesmo, and you now have a car that drives very, very different, as we're already getting in the first pit stops here.
Alessandro Bernardini in the pit lane right now, as his teammate only Fabio Ponta is staying out. His other teammate is going into the pit lane, so strategy is starting to play a part in this race. I think we're going to have 2 pit stops for every single car, if I'm not wrong. I don't think that there is anyone who's going to try the one stop, because it's far too much time to stay on the same with the same tank of fuel for 38 minutes.
It's going to be difficult, but I think if any of these drivers can do it, they will definitely be trying as hard as possible to do that, as we see all of the Leo drivers in the pits in LMP, and also James Ibram in the pits as well. Dylan van der Lans, interestingly enough, going for one more lap, so I don't know if Dylan thinks that maybe he can overcut, potentially. He's now got a lot of clean air ahead of him. Has been caught up a little bit in GT traffic, though, it looks like. So Dylan van der Lans maybe should have been pitting in sort of time that that all of the other LMPs are pitting. Frank is in the pits, as well as, I believe that's Charles Henriksen also in the pits. So, interestingly enough, we have Dylan van der Lans, Calvin Dent, Max Voss haven't pit yet. Alessandro Izzo and James Ibram are now both out of the pit lane and very close to each other, and also very close to Calvin as well.
Yeah, but Calvin Dent did not box. He's staying one more lap. I'm very curious. Is there anyone who's going to try the one stop? Can that work?
We saw, I believe it was Benjamin Seiss did the one stop at Indianapolis, I believe. That was the only time that we've seen a one stop. And it was it barely worked. And he had to be fuel saving pretty much from the start of the race on both stints. So it's very risky. And if anybody was trying it, chances are that's probably why we haven't seen their pace be particularly good. but Dylan van der Lands is now into the pits. So Dylan clearly having stopped a lap later, hoping maybe something like this can happen. The GT traffic holding up the LMPs. And
three-way battle. This is the three-way battle for the effective lead of the race, as now Max Voss goes into 4th place, which means he is in the 2nd place. No, in the 3rd place. Right.
Yeah, he will be. Yeah, Max Voss right now would be 3rd.
3rd. Yeah.
So once Calvin pits, this is your lead right now. This is your front three.
Ibram is leading the race effectively. This is the move for 1st place. James Ibram is in 2nd place right now, but he is effectively in the lead of the race with Alessandro Izzo in 2nd place and Max Voss down in 3rd place. So James Ibram doing an absolutely amazing work to get back into 1st place.
Yeah, and again, what we saw is the help of the GT traffic. You look at how James caught the GT traffic right in the right place. He caught it exactly where he needed to where he could put that GT car between himself and the other LMP of Izzo, but now the GT traffic not playing in James's favor and doing the exact opposite of what James would like to do. And instead, putting that GT car in the way of himself, so now Alessandro Izzo is right onto the back of him again, and this is going to be constant throughout the rest of this stint. These LMPs and these GTs are going to be causing absolute carnage within one another, and they're going to cause this battle to keep being so close. All 3 cars now we saw were about a second apart, and there is going to be some sort of splitting of the seas here almost for these drivers as they're trying to get past the GTs the best they can. Izzo staying out of the slipstream, interestingly enough, of James Ibram. I think it was more so to defend from Max Voss behind him, and Calvin is now in the pit lane as well, but Max Voss is now also going into the pit lane for, is this the 2nd time Max is in the pits?
I think it's his 1st time. Let me check. Yes, it actually is his 1st time. So I thought Max Voss stayed out, and that came as a surprise because he was pretty much down in the standings. But anyways, I'm curious of what happened to the Leo Racing team drivers, because they are super fast, but look how bad the strategy has played out for them. Alessandro Izzo is in 2nd place, Labate is in 5th place, and Lorenzo Castellani is down in 7th place. Remember that before the pit stops, we've had 3 cars in top 4 of the same team. They lost a lot of time. The strategy wasn't as good as that. Big move from James Ibram, and now Alessandro Izzo through Les Mo 1 will make the move and will get that 1st place back. The pressure has gone up to Ibram as he loses the lead. Now the GT3 is not in a great position for the English driver as he loses more and more time.
Yeah, and again, this is what we keep saying, multi-class racing, you get double your money's worth when you go multi-class racing. You get to see 2 races for the price of 1, and the unfortunate thing is for the drivers, it affects both of them. So James Ibram, while he had some really good luck with traffic on the start of the, what I would say is sort of their first flying lap, then Alessandro Izzo has now had the luck of the GT traffic going in his favor for the second part of the run back, shall we say, the battle between these guys. And again, James Ibram is going to have the same sort of thing happen here. He's going to have to hope that Alessandro Izzo gets caught up by the GTs that are ahead of him, and looking at where those GTs are, you wouldn't imagine there's going to be too many issues. I believe he'll catch them on the exit of the chicane and then into the Curva Grande. And again, the Leo Racing cars, are the GTs going to work with the LMPs to make James' life that little bit harder? But again, it doesn't look like they are. It looks like they're just sort of focusing on their own race for now. And this is just going to be a battle that we're going to see rage on throughout the rest of the night stint here. Getting into 28 minutes of this session have been and gone, and we have an hour's worth of racing in total, so I believe 31 minutes left of racing, obviously probably plus 1 lap. I imagine we'll get 1 more lap of racing in as the clock runs down past the hour mark. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes, the timing of the race. Obviously, it's also something to consider, isn't it? Because when you're doing like fuel calculations, for example, you want to put in as little fuel as you can, save as much time as you can in the pit stops, so that you can be on the track as much as you can. That's the same in any sort of form of racing that has pit stops. You want to be on the track as long as possible, and you want to be off the track for the shortest amount of time possible. If you're leading the race and you have I would imagine they have some sort of like target time, right? Like an average lap time that they think they're going to be around, and that's sort of what they base their fuel calculations on. Do you ever think that potentially changes mid-race? Like, do you ever think they sort of actually take note of that and be like, right, how many laps estimated do we think we've got left? Are we actually going to need to change our fuel strategy to account for that?
For sure. That's 100% sure, because you see yourself in a position, like I'm putting myself now in Ibram's position. He started in 6th place, he's now in 2nd, and he's very close to get that 1st place. Obviously he's going to push much more than he would have thought, because it's that thing, you're seeing the win close to you and you want to get that. So obviously the strategy changes throughout the race. I'm curious, how is the Englishman's strategy going to be for today? I think he's starting to save fuel, because the gap has been frozen for some laps. That's 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. Now it's growing. I think Ibram has done a mistake or something.
Bit of traffic as well.
yeah, exactly. But it's in the same zone. So maybe they are both saving for now. Towards the end of the race, I'm sure this thing is not going to happen anymore, and both of them are going to push to the maximum.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, right, where you look at these drivers who are battling and have battled constantly, and the drivers who have had lots of position gains, position losses, and the drivers that may be expected to be doing a lap time maybe not as even quick as what they're doing now. And I believe the way that the fuel is going to work out is that you'll sort of end up, I'd imagine, overestimating on your fuel a lot of the time, just to be safe. I think a lot of these drivers will know roughly, this much fuel gets me this many laps. I kind of know what my car does. That's part of, the racing aspect of it. That's part of the practice and the time that you put in. How much, your car can do on a tank of fuel. And I think what we'll see is, if drivers are being aggressive, like Ibram is being, like Van der Lans is probably being to try and get past his teammate, and like Vettel is doing to try and really push himself into that top 3. He's gained 6 positions at the moment. Castellani, same thing, right? He's lost a lot of positions, so now he's going to be aggressive to try and get those back. I think he's going to potentially overfuel, so he can burn more. He can drive more aggressively, because he doesn't have to worry about that fuel and saving and anything like that. He can just go. And I think that's what we'll see, is potentially these second wave of pit stops are going to be slightly longer than you would probably see normally, because they're going to be taking that little bit extra on fuel. As we have a crash here, this is Lammert Vedder.
The BMW again. So everyone was cheering for the BMWs at the start of the race. Now they are going through some hard times today, as it's just gone straight on. It seemed like a brake failure. He looked a lot like Sebastian Vettel back in 2020 here, just losing brakes there.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be maybe you just missed the braking zone. You don't want to risk obviously turning in and spinning, so you just take the escape road, take the penalty as it comes, and just get back on it. You then have the lovely Curva Grande afterwards, so you've got that nice little bit of time to stretch your legs, get yourself back up and try and figure out what just happened, whether or not it was a missed braking point, or whether it was just, a little bit of a slip.
Is this the incident that it's being under investigation? Let's see. It actually is the incident. It's car number 4 in 783.
So car number 4 is way out in front.
Oh, it's a big. Oh. Everyone was hoping for a dive bomb. Now you've had it.
Yeah, that's not how it went though.
I'm sorry, that came from Spain. That was a dive bomb, but straight from Spain.
Absolutely. And look, Barcelona Catalonia, you know, has a couple of chicanes as well. I can see where potentially, you know, you're thinking, you know, I'll just send it, right? But maybe you need to like.
That was from last week from Fuji.
I missed the braking zone for turn 1. The straight's so long, I teleported over to Monza.
The magic of Italy.
Yeah. And it happens so often as well. That's the other thing. It's almost a guarantee. You can see that it's going to happen at some point in Monza. There will be a dive bomb at some point. Someone's going to miss their braking zone for turn 1 and just about make the corner and probably collect about 4 or 5 cars with them.
Yeah, the magic of Italy. I think that Tifosi would just hope for this magic in order to win a race here at Monza, because it wasn't a good time. It haven't been good times for them. Not even today. In GT3, they are, I think, in 6th place right now.
So we do have obviously the incidents that we've seen, just to keep you guys updated on the stream. We have a drive-through penalty for that dive bomb that we saw. Obviously, you know, you'd expect it, right? You know, that was quite a big dive bomb and something that was definitely avoidable. And yeah, to see that being resolved is quite nice. You know, solve it with a penalty in the race. That way, there's no drama outside of the race, in theory. You know, so in the race, give the penalty in the race, then that way you don't have to worry about, you know, post-race time penalties or any of that stuff that changes the race result after the race is over. Where you finish is where you finish, as we are on board with Adam Hedgecock battling here for P7 against a Mercedes. And again, this is something, I was going to say Ryan then, as Ryan is the other Altitude Esports driver. I'm not sure where he's been the past couple of weeks, actually. I think we've not seen him out in action. But yeah, Adam Hedgecock flying the flag for the Altitude Esports team, and he's seeing a lot of Mercedes right now. He is battling quite hard with almost every Mercedes driver on the grid, it feels like.
Yeah, I'm looking at an LMP2 classification because Van der Lans has been stuck behind Wessel since the pit stop, so there's been about 15 minutes. I'm curious is that a strategy? Is he saving fuel? He thinks, okay, Wessel has a good pace, I can't stay behind him, or is he just not able to overtake his opponent? Because Carlo Labati has recovered very well. He's now in the back of Dylan's car. So if there's a moment to overtake, it's now for Dylan.
Yeah, and I think, again, those two are teammates. And again, we've mentioned that before, that there is that team thing. But it seems like none of these drivers want to work together. It's something that we've seen throughout the race, is that none of these drivers want to work together as a team, and they all want to just battle each other. And it's one thing that you'll see is that the way that Vessel and Dylan have been going is that they've sort of been, I guess, battling amongst themselves, trying to see who is the faster of the two of them. It looks like they're so closely matched on pace, though, that every time one of them improves, as Lorenzo Castellani, by the way, fastest lap of the race, and he has just done a 1:34.7, as we see a move down here. This is Calvin Dent on Leon. This is down for P7, so Leon losing a position there, unfortunately, as we cut back to the GT3 battle between Adam Hedgecock and Richard, who, his last name, Edward, I'll let you try and pronounce that one. I'm not going to give it a shot.
Richard Jidervishk. I think that was pretty good. I'm proud of it. So I'm looking at the chat, and everyone wants GT3. So here we have the GT3s, and I think that's a battle for the lead, actually. Between, is that Ponta? Yes, that's Ponta and Bernardini battling for first place. The Aspar and the Leo Racing team. Now, this is Victor Roma. Let's see what happened to him. He's in the pit lane right now. So was that a crash? Beautiful shot. Oh, there's the spin, actually. I think his tires are finished, and he has decided that it's time to change them.
I mean, potentially, if he's pitting now, depending on how long he's in the pit lane for, he can make the end of the race. Keep in mind that a lot of these drivers pit sort of around 25 minutes or so.
This has been 14.65 seconds, and the usual is 20 seconds. So, is that just fuel? Or is it less fuel? I think I'm not really sure, because that's an unusual small time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's taking less fuel. Obviously, if it was a pit stop that was way early than is usual, then I guess he has to take less fuel than he normally would do, as there is battling here. Finally, I believe we'll see a change for P3 between Dylan Van Lans and Bekema. So Dylan, once again, finally able to get past, and I believe it looked as though it was a bit of team orders. I believe the pass wasn't fought too hard, so I think Dylan has now said, right, we need to get a move on here. Let's chase away from Carlo Labate. Let's try and see if we can maybe leapfrog each other with the slipstream, as we see that GT battle that we've been keeping on board with still going on in the background of this battle. And again, I'm sure that we'll see the way that these two are going to be fighting now, and the way that they're going to be dealing with Carlo behind them. We'll see how that goes. Are they going to use that slipstream? Are they going to be switching each other around every now and then to you know, just try and build the gap? Because it is a strategy that works. Normally you see it in NASCAR, mainly oval stuff, as Adam Hedgecock does try and go up the inside here of the Mercedes, does make the move.
Side by side.
Is he going to make it stick? Doesn't look like he will, and then of course the Mercedes has to come across, because you have that number 5 Leo racing car immediately boxing Adam in. So even if Adam had the run, he couldn't really make that move because of the LMP that got involved as well. Is Adam going to try again into the second chicane? Doesn't look like it. Looks like he's just going to sit behind for now, taking all the curbing. See that Ferrari bouncing around all over the place. And quite stiff suspension as well, so I imagine maybe the back's not going to feel very good after that one.
Yeah, but it's you don't feel those things. But I remember there was someone, he said that obviously about the injuries of these sports, because of the force feedback, he actually broke his hand when crashing.
Yeah.
Because the steering wheel just gone from left to right very quick and just broke his hand. So that you can't get injured. Even in esport, it's not all fun and games, but when that happens, that's not great. As Alessio Bernardini is in the pit lane right now, he has done his pit stop 13.87 pit stop. So again, less than the usual.
And again, you'd imagine it's probably because they're taking a bit less fuel now as well, trying to make it to the end of the race. You know, they figured out, right, this is how much I need to make it to the end of the race with the current pace of it. And again, James Ebram also in the lane, as I believe is this Alessio coming out of the pit and able to make a move on Glamset almost immediately. So straight on it, immediately out the pit lane is Alessio Bernardi. And you know, Alessio, I think, is just proving that his driving ability, very, very good. Immediately coming straight out the pit lane and immediately passing someone on cold tires, when that car is on hot tires. You know, has been driving for a while, you know, he's in the groove, and then you just come along and you're just straight past him immediately. Shows some pretty good talent there for that driver.
Yep. James Ebram has been through the pit lane. He has gone back out in 7th place. So this is an undercut on Alessandro Iso. We will just wait and see now if it's going to pan out for the English driver and if he will be able to get that first place. I think everyone from the LMP2 is going to come into the pit lane rather sooner than later. I'm curious, Van der Lans, what is his strategy going to be, because he was the last to pit out of the LMP2 cars. So he's the one to keep an eye on. He's in 2nd place right now. And we're having on the screen the penalties for the race. We're having 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, and then another 5 seconds. The incidents have all been on the stream.
Yeah, and again, those are all going to be post-race incidents, so the end results that we see may not be the end results that are official. And something that I think, you know, we can try and work out if we note those down. If someone makes a note of those and works it out, sort of post the results, we can then figure out where everyone is. And you know, that's something that I'm sure we'll be able to update you guys on, so we know sort of who finishes where as like the actual overall standings, because it's important. You know, halfway through the championship, everybody's starting to think about that championship points, where they are in the overall order, as Fabio Ponta's trying to make his way past Glamser, and I believe Ponta has just come out of the pit lane as well. Is this his first lap?
He did. He
pits?
just did. That's right. He's getting now in 4th place to be just behind his actual opponent in the race. That's Alessio Bernardini. Alessio Bernardini is effectively the leader of the race. He has pitted, and he's now ahead of Fabio Ponta. Now Ponta has a 3 seconds gap to recover to Alessio in order to get that win for the Leon Racing team, as Alessandro Izzo, the leader of the overall race in LMP2, is in the pit lane, as also Carlo Labari has in the pit lane, and Castellani. As we're seeing a replay, I think this is the Porsche of Goods Geseke. Yep, that is. Let's see what happened. This is Superbolica.
And another similar incident. The Porsches having all sorts of trouble through the Parabolica, it seems like, near the end of their stints.
All 3 Leo Racing team cars from LMP2 has boxed at the same time. Let's see where will they go out, because we remember that after the first series of pit lane, that they've gone out in very bad positions. Let's see if now it's better, as Ibram is now attacking
or defending, I think. No, that was a lapped car, I believe, of Aiden Young.
Yeah.
That's just getting involved there. And I think for James Ibram, was he not battling with Izzo at one point?
He did, but he's now 13 seconds away.
So either something has happened, traffic has happened, or that was generally a slower pit stop for James. And yeah, you can see it in the pit lane time. The Izzo was out 5 seconds faster than what James was able to do. So that's where probably a lot of that time has come from. Obviously, Izzo being on track for 5 seconds longer is where you'll see that gap start to develop. And yeah, so I don't know what happened with James on his in-lap, but maybe just didn't hit the marks quite as well. You know, got held in the pit lane a little bit longer. That's 5 seconds longer, so maybe had damage potentially to repair. It's really, really ridiculous. It's insane how the pit lane time can affect the race so much. And some little information, a little bit of a tidbit for you. Last time Anti Still Racing went to Monza was the GT3 Series Season 2. Luigi Nespolino, who is currently... Is Luigi in this race? Yes. Currently in P5 in GT3 class. He finished P2 in GT3. So, as I say that, I believe he just managed to... Or he will be going up a few positions here as Richard is now in the pits. But no, he's also pitting as well. Is this his 3rd stop? I thought he'd already pit.
It's his second. There's the second pit stop of Luigi Nespolino. Anyways, what has James Ibram done there in LMP2 is, I think, exactly what you have said that you would do if you would be in his situation. He put more fuel in the car in order to have from where to take it. But Calvin Dent and also Dylan van der Lans has been through the pit lane. As the battle for the lead now doesn't include James Ibram anymore. It's Calvin Dent there behind Alessandro Izzo.
But but I believe, does Calvin need to stop one more time, or has he actually managed to pull
He
that
has been
off?
to the pit lane.
So he actually then will be, no, he is in the pit lane, so
Isn't it his third? I think it's his third stop, isn't it?
potentially. I know Calvin was a little bit further down the order when we were looking at him last time out, so to see him so far up and knowing that he was going a couple of laps later than the rest of these guys, you know, Carlo Labate, James Ebram, Dylan van der Lands, makes a bit more sense. But again, Dylan, amazing job at putting in, you know, that as least fuel as possible and making sure that you even get the jump above James Ebram. So whatever James did ends up now probably costing him a position and maybe even the win of the race, because he looked like he was quick enough to challenge Izzo.
Yeah.
But we will have to wait and see.
Maybe
We've
he
got 10
put
minutes
more
of the race
fuel.
left.
Maybe he put more fuel, so he will just be able to push to the absolute maximum and burn as much fuel as he need in order to recover that time to first place. But only time will tell this. The problem is, he's not faster. 1:35.6 for Alessandro Izzo and 1:35.7 for James Ebram. So he is actually slower than his opponent. That's not a great thing. Carlo Labate is actually faster. No, he's slower as well. He's lower as well. So yeah, I think we will stay with this order for some time now.
Yeah, and again, it's something that, you know, if you're James Ebram, maybe you think actually I shouldn't have, as there's a contact in GT, Luigi Nespolino. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly who that was. Was that Lars potentially that he was involved in? But again, not the incident really that you wanted to have. Obviously, you want to have a clean race, and yeah, Luigi unfortunately just tagging a little bit there, that Mercedes, spinning them around, and I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but it's even still, you know, it's avoidable. It is under investigation, obviously. You know, it was seen live on stream, so I'm sure, you know, the stewards are already on top of it. They're already looking into it, as Calvin Dent is here in P7 battling Sebastian Van den Heuvel. And again, Van den Heuvel almost looked like he was going to get a really good run out of the first chicane, but Calvin Dent, having a little bit of a worse run, actually sort of slowed him down. Sebastian couldn't really go anywhere, so has to sort of ease off, and now going down the Curva Grande, going into the second chicane, has to get past that Leo Racing car. I believe both of the LMPs are just going to wait it out, maybe go for the move into the first Lesmo. And is that going to mean, indeed it is, there is now going to be a car between Calvin Dent and Sebastian Van den Heuvel, which is exactly what Calvin wants, to just give himself a bit of breathing room, make sure that he can now just nail Lesmo 2 with no pressure behind him, and then just gun it into Ascari.
Labate is very close. Labate is getting very close there to Ebram for third place. For Ebram, if he was battling for the win of the race at the start, after, well, better said after the first pit stop, now he might not even get a podium because Labate is close and he's gaining. He moves to the right. He will have the inside, and I think that's job done. It's move done for Carlo Labate. He's up into a podium place. As he's done mistake, I think he's spun. This is spun.
Yeah, so he locked up, I believe, going into the corner, and here we go. We'll see a replay of this nice overview shot, so we'll be able to see exactly what happened here. Carlo Labate with the slipstream going into turn number 1, makes the move done pretty much into the braking zone, so he could have potentially come across and then just went too deep on the brakes. Car spun, and oh, there's a touch there as well.
And it is going to be very important because there's surely damage. Surely there is damage now to Carlo Labate, and if there's someone who profited from this, is Lorenzo Castellani, who is back in a good position, back in 4th place, and with only 3.5 seconds to recover to James Ebram, the podium for him is up for grabs.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lorenzo is going to be thanking, I think, he's going to be thanking his teammate there for potentially sending it a bit too deep and almost gifting him a couple of positions, because he was also behind the car who is now in P5, Bakema. And yeah, Lorenzo gains 2 positions out of that incident. And, you know, yes, you can say it's a little bit lucky. You know, he was kind of saved by the fact that the driver did make the mistake in the first place, as Adam Hedgecock still unable to really get past Richard, but he's going to try it here into turn number 1 we go. Adam Hedgecock on the outside, which will turn to the inside, and yep, the Mercedes, unfortunately, sending it way too deep into the corner. All sorts of wrong going over the curb, and that is move done by Adam Hedgecock. Nicely done by Adam Hedgecock as well. So good to see him now making his way through, and we'll see if he can gain any more positions, although with a 13-second gap to Christian Glamser, it's going to be a pretty tall order, isn't it, to try and make any more moves from here.
You can just hear the Tifosi absolutely cheering for Adam Hedgecock getting that 6th place. He still can get the top 5. It's 13 seconds. He's slower, sadly. He's slower than the drivers in front of him, but who knows? Some luck. It's the Italian magic after all, so who knows?
Yeah, and you know, it'll be cool to see. Obviously, you know, the Tifosi you've mentioned are going to want their driver, their man, to be ahead of all the Mercedes and the Porsches if they can. But yeah, Adam Hedgecock is doing an amazing job right now. Driver that we normally sort of see said last season in the GTs that he was sort of in a field by himself, it looked like a lot of the time, as we see the post-race penalty there between the incident that happened between car number 78 and 422, that indeed the penalty is on Carlo Labatti, so another 5-second post-penalty for him, which, yeah, is going to mean that we have more things to look at, more people to change the order of after the race. Now, with everyone battling as close as they are, I'm not sure if it will matter for this battle if the order stays as it is. Very close, 3 wide going into turn 1. It's not what you want to be doing, as again, Carlo Labatti is so close to that Mercedes. That poor Mercedes has been bruised and battered and beaten all around this race, it feels like. It's been under a lot of fire from both LMPs and GTs alike.
Yeah, sadly for him, as we could have seen there for one moment the comparison between the LMP2 and the Mercedes GT3 car. We can just see how small the LMP2 car actually is in comparison. Look, even with the Ferrari, who is probably the smallest car out of them all, the LMP2 still looks smaller.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I think a lot of that is to do with the low profile of these LMP2 cars. They don't sit very high. You know, if you ever look at them, if you ever watch any onboards of cars, you know, prototypes specifically around circuits like, you know, any circuit that has elevation change, if you sit and watch an onboard of these cars around those circuits, you'll see that quite a lot of corners that normally in like a GT car you'd be able to see everything. In a car like this, some of them are actually becoming blind because of how low you are to the ground. And, you know, it's good for, you know, that good center of gravity, you know, very balanced car and all the aerodynamic wizardry that goes on to make these cars as fast as they are. But for a driver's point of view, it almost becomes a little bit harder to drive, especially when you've got, for example, the big BMW blocking your vision. You can hardly see through it, so you kind of have to just hope that you can use the sort of the peripheral vision outside of the BMW being in the way to make something of where you are and be able to really sort of know where you are on track as well. And again, that's something that multi-class racing is also difficult for, is that as we see James Ebram clattering over the curbs there, as Lorenzo Castellani has actually caught up to him, so potentially fight on here for P3. And again, the Aspar Racing team cars are getting involved in the GT battle and making this one probably a little bit tighter than it otherwise would. You'd imagine James Ebram is trying to run away the best he can, but Lorenzo Castellani's last lap, he is on an absolute mission right now. 135.3 compared to James Ebram's 136.7. And I saw a couple of laps ago as well, James Ebram did a 138. So it looks like James has had a lot of mistakes as of late, so we'll have to wait and see if car number 8 can get it all together and start really pushing away from Lorenzo Castellani. Otherwise, you'd imagine, depends on where the leader is, 2 more laps maximum. Is James going to be able to hold off? He's weaving.
Weaving on the straight, exactly. And now Castellani is moving to the left. He will have the outside in turn 1, but the inside in turn 2, as there's contact, and Castellani has to cut a corner. He gets the place. Will he get the position back? Yes, he does. He is supposed to do that, so it's not just that quick and easy for the Italian driver. He needs 1 more lap at least to overtake the English driver, but the problem is he's running out of time. Only 15 seconds, and I think a lap and a half to go up until the end of the race.
Yeah, and I'm sure that...
Was it
yeah,
a slowdown?
Yeah, so because of how Lorenzo cut that corner, even though he was basically forced into it from the contact, iRacing won't see that and will give you a slowdown penalty, and unfortunately, a situation that was already bad goes to worse, as there is obviously under investigation the incident between the 2 drivers, car number 5 and car number 8, that is Lorenzo and James respectively, and we're going to see whether or not any penalty actually gets given, because it's hard to say from this shot that we watched if anybody was at fault or if that was just a racing incident. And then for Lorenzo to be punished so harshly with the whole slowdown penalty on top of it, as the race is over actually, so unfortunately there will not be 1 more lap. James Ebram is going to potentially take the 3rd place here, as we see Fabio Ponta and Alessandro Izzo will win the race for GT and LMP respectively. And yeah, James Ebram does hold on for P3. Lorenzo Castellani.
That's
P4.
it. It's race over.
Yep, that was it. They didn't have 1 more lap. Unfortunately, the leader manages to almost slow down enough to where he basically crossed the line exactly when the timer was out.
Yeah. That's
the one at shame, and he just crossed the line. And unfortunately, what that means is for a lot of these drivers, they were expecting 1 more lap. They're not going to get it, and the battle that we thought was going to be on for another lap comes to a very abrupt end. But I will say though, regardless, all 38 laps of this race were absolutely incredible.
Yes, I completely agree. And this is La Mortuera crossing the line with the BMW. It hasn't been a great day for the BMWs. All of them had problems, as we're seeing now the decision for the incident between car number 5 and car number 8, which is James Ebram and Lorenzo Castellani. It's a reprimand for car number 8. It's a reprimand for James Ebram. So the podium stays like that. We have Alessandro Izzo, winner here in Italy, Dylan van der Lans in 2nd place, and James Ebram in 3rd place. So it looks like Dylan van der Lans, with his different strategy with pitting very late, it has paid out. He finishes 2nd here at Monza. And the tifosi might not cheer for Ferrari, but surely they will cheer for their Italian driver winning here. Alessandro Izzo wins for Leo Racing Team with over 10 seconds advantage to Dylan van der Lans, and James Ebram completes the podium in 3rd place. Lorenzo Castellani will finish in 4th with over 20 seconds, and Wissel Bakema finishes 5th here. Carlo Labari is the last Leo Racing Team car in 6th place, Calvin Dent 7th, Max Vos in 8th place with Van den Heuvel in 9th place and Leon Van Elvoet in 10th place. This was the LMP2 story of the race number 5.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the LMP2 battle played out. Obviously, a lot of interesting decisions were made. A lot of, I think that ending is going to be quite controversial, I'm sure. There's going to be a discussion about that, I imagine, between James and Lorenzo. But your GT battle, Fabio Ponta. As we mentioned, the Tifosi cheering for 2 drivers here for the win of the race. Both Italians leading and winning here at Monza, with Alessio Bernardi, another Italian driver in P2 for GT. So lots of Italian pride going in the way of your general Monza fans, you know, the people who love to see Italian drivers do well. Obviously, the Italians, they love to see it. They're so passionate when it comes to motorsport, and I'm sure they're going to be having an absolute worldie back in their homes and cheering on their drivers. But again, we have Raul Suarez and Victor Roman, the Spanish duo, who finished P3 and P4 respectively, and then Christian Glamstetter there for P5. Adam Hedgecock in P6 with Richard in P7. We have Luigi Nespolino P8, João Diaz P9, and then Lars Van Ryn P10 in GT3. And again, what a race it was. It was absolutely jam-packed, full of action from start to finish. And, you know, I can't wait for us to get back racing again. It was so good.
It really was. It really was. And again, multi-class racing, as you've mentioned a lot of times in the stream, it's absolutely beautiful because we are having 2 races at the same time. And obviously the LMP cars have to avoid GT3. And we can see every race we have winners and losers caused by the traffic. Today, I don't think it has played such a big role. Obviously, we're at Monza. It's not that hard to overtake. But I'm sure in the next races is going to be even more important, as now we are waiting for Alessandro Iso and Fabio Ponta to join us in the commentators booth in order to have their thoughts on the race. Ava, before them, I'm asking you, what is your final thoughts on the race?
Honestly, I think that in terms of the race itself, I think we've seen a lot of thrills, a lot of spills, and, you know, it's going to be one that gets looked at as probably a classic for the IMSA series. You know, we've seen the GT action, mixing up that LMP2 battle as well, and making the LMP2s almost have a tighter battle than you would otherwise expect. And the GTs as well. Obviously, we know the GT cars, they're going to be so quick as well. Right, the GTs are going to be so close every time. They always are. They always love to battle, especially the top 5 Porsches. They always love to battle each other, get it on as well, and really sort of show who is the best Porsche driver, it feels like. And, you know, it's, again, it is one of those things that the way that the battles are here in IMSA, it's not like any other type of racing that you'll see. Because of the fact that you have the ability to watch 2 races at the same time, you have that sort of dynamic where, you know, you can have the LMP2 battle raging on right next to the GT battle, and your eyes just don't know where they're going to look at. They're all just going to go absolutely mental, and just sort of you almost have to sort of take a step back and almost watch the race twice to figure out exactly what went on in both races, because it's so hard to keep track of everything. I mean, regardless, as always, it is absolutely incredible to see, and you know, it's one of those things that yeah, I think we'll see more of, I'm sure. And yeah, I can't wait to go racing again. Honestly, I want to go. I just want to get back out there.
As I said, it feels good to be back, and for me to come back in the commentaries both. Oh, this is lovely, and especially having this race, you know, at Monza with all these different classes, these battles, strategies, controversy. Because I'm sure there is going to be a lot of controversy, Eva, because at the start of the race there was the incident between the 2 Leo Racing teammates. And it also happened in Fuji last week. I'm sure that Lorenzo Castellani, Carlo Labari, and Alessandro Iso will not be very happy one with each other. I think Alessandro Iso might be happy because obviously he won the race. But the other 2 Italians surely will have things to complain about. And at the race debrief, if they will have that, it's not going to be a good atmosphere. Maybe that's why Alessandro Rizzo is not joining. Maybe they are having the team debrief.
They're having the team meeting right now after the race was over because they really want to make sure. Look, the gloves are off and they're settling it. They're settling it in a ring somewhere, I'd imagine.
The gloves are off. Now the boxing gloves should go on.
Yeah, exactly. But to update you guys to where we're going to be next week, we're going to be at Road America next week. Now, Edward, I'm not sure if you've ever seen a race around Road America, or if you've ever commentated a race around Road America, but it is a very tight, twisty circuit. It is a very narrow circuit, so it's going to be very interesting to see how these cars battle it out here in the multi-class world. And then, the week after that, it's got to be the big one. The circuit to 24-hour Le Mans. The legendary Le Mans. That's the one everyone wants to win, surely.
Yeah. Clearly.
2 weeks' time, we're at Le Mans for IMSA, and I'm excited. I'm excited for it. That'll be really, really good.
Surely it's going to be. I'm curious. That is going to be a very, very important race. And with all these drivers getting so close, especially the three teammates from Leo, that's going to be an interesting one. Anyways, we were talking about Road America. I actually have raced there on Road America a lot of times. Obviously never on a league level because I'm still racing with my keyboard. But I know the track, and it's twisty. It's hard to overtake the GT3 cars, but it's one of the nicest tracks to drive around. It's so satisfying hitting every apex on that track. I absolutely loved every time I was racing on it.
Yeah, and it is, as you say, it's a very satisfying circuit and one that we absolutely love racing in, and we love watching it, spectating it, commentating over it, because it has that lovely charm about it, I think, that no other circuit does. It's got that awesome feeling that when you nail it, it feels like a qualifying lap at Monaco, right? It just feels like, because the track is so narrow and so unforgiving, that when you nail the lap there, you feel like you're an absolute legend. You feel like you've done absolutely the best qualifying lap you've ever done in your life. And here we have James Ebram, who is joining with us. Mate, again, well done for yourself, getting yourself up on I believe it was the podium in the end. A little bit of a battle on the last few laps, but how do you think the race went for yourself, mate?
Start went great, if I'm honest. Perfectly to plan. Got a lucky dodge on a spinning GT early on, which sort of caught me up to Alessandro. And then the last stint, that was a bit poor, if I'm honest. I started to bottle it a little bit, like I have been doing the past few races. But got a little bit lucky, a little bit fortunate with mistakes from others, and that made me hold on to the podium.
Yeah, and as you say, it's really a race of two halves, isn't it? You've got the first part of the race, you can have an amazing start, but at the end, if you aren't necessarily on it, moving later on, you end up in that sort of situation where you're battling with somebody who maybe you didn't think you were battling with. But we saw that you were battling, obviously, for P1 for a little while, and we noticed that actually the pit stop time there for the second pit stop wasn't necessarily as fast as everyone else around you. Was that due to damage or more fuel, or?
I took a shorter first stop to break any chance of a tow from behind and catch up to Alessandro.
Right, okay, so it was one of those, took a shorter stop at the beginning, meant that my stop was sort of longer in the second part, but hoping I could use that to maybe catch up.
Yeah, Alessandro had good pace, and I realised pretty early on that I wasn't going to beat him on raw pace alone. Didn't think I was going to be honest, I was just kind of using him to pull me along. So the way I saw it is, if I pit shorter, about 3 seconds was the gap, so I fueled about 9 litres less. So that I came out the pit stop right behind him so that I could just let him pull me along a bit. But that didn't last too long because of traffic, but you know, it worked in some ways, and in other ways it didn't.
Yeah, but again, even still, P3, you got to be happy with it, you know? It's a good result at the end of the day, and you're still on the podium, so points of glory, as we've all seen that the points in the IMSA series, rather generous amount of points per result, so, you know, it's still all to play for, and next race out, Road America, you excited for that one?
It's okay circuit. I'm not that great at it, but and I don't really get that much practice. So I basically come into all these races with literally zero practice. And last week I actually went in and I didn't even realize it was Fuji. So it's going to be interesting because Road America is one that I do even with practice. I'm not very good at. So we'll see how that goes. I might try and sneak in some practice after work one night, but we'll see.
So what you're saying is top 3 guaranteed, right? That's it's playing the long game.
If only it was that easy. I've got to get out of my own head and bottling it all the time.
But James, mate, as always, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'll just shout out to the team and all our sponsors. You know, ATRS Esports, Apex Technologies, ATRS Dot Supply. You know, supplying the US for high quality sim gear, and Meridian, VPG, all the big guys there to help us as a team grow bigger and better, hopefully.
So there you go. You've heard it from James. There's all the sponsor thanks. that's their moment in the spotlight.
The contractual, it's fulfilled now. So.
But yes, mate. We'll let you get on. You can celebrate your P3. Sure, put your feet up and relax a little. But as always, mate, pleasure to see you.
Yeah, cheers. I appreciate it. Catch you guys later.
And we also have Adam Hedgecock and Edward. Do you want to talk to Adam about the GT action that we saw? We saw a lot of Adam battling there with Richard, quite a lot. So, it's just awesome to see, isn't it?
Yeah, hello Adam. First of all, I have to say that here in the commentators booth, we were cheering for you. We were saying that Tifosi surely are screaming every time we're doing an overtake, because obviously you are driving the Ferrari. First of all, I want to ask you, what do you think about the race? How did it go for you? And what was the general feeling here on the Monza circuit?
It was pretty good, to be fair. It was tough in the early going. The front guys are pretty quick. I was trying to fuel save, but I soon realised that I had to be driving flat out if I wanted to stay with the pack. They were so quick. Had a nice battle with Christian for a while, and then the LMPs come through, and it's a roll of the dice at that point, isn't it? You're kind of trying to lose as little time as possible. But it doesn't always work out that way, and then the pit stops happened, and then I found Richard and his back wing and enjoyed looking at that for over half the race. But no, it's good fun. You know, Richard played fair, which was brilliant. You know, even though I was behind him for a long time, managed to get a move done and claimed a hard fought P6, which was I'll take that all day of the week.
Yeah, I'm looking at the results and I'm seeing a lot of Porsches there at the top. Do you think that there was a disadvantage, the fact that you'd driven a Ferrari in comparison to the Porsche?
The Tifosi will hate me saying this, but it's a disadvantage driving the Ferrari everywhere at the moment, against everything. It's not the best of cars, but the Porsche does seem to have a little bit extra at the moment. The BOP is not the best. I'm not gonna slate it off too bad, but it's a little bit out of sync, and the Porsche is a very strong car at the moment.
Yeah, what you said about Ferrari, take care when you leave Italy, because
I know. I love driving it. It's a great car to drive. It's better this season than it was last season. They've done a few tweaks on it, which makes it a bit more responsive. but it just lacks a little bit of grunt out the corners. Like you put your foot down and you're kind of waiting a little bit, you know. But other than that, it's an absolute joy to drive.
Yeah. Next up, Road America. Have you driven on it, or what's your general feeling on that track?
It's a good track. I enjoy it because it's one of those that you can really get stuck into it. You know, there's a couple of tricky, hard braking corners, and there's a few kind of how brave are you corners, you know, and I enjoy it. I'm looking forward to next week. It should be a good one.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam. Eva, is there anything that you would like to add at the end of the stream?
I mean, Adam, mate, always a pleasure to have you on board with us. And again, thanks for showing us exactly how tight that GT battle is. I know you were mentioning last season in the GTs, you wanted to see more battling, and I think you've had that so far this season. You've had a few more people battling up with you, so yeah, I'm sure you're happy with it, right?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, last season was a weird one, wasn't it? Because you had like the front 4 or 5 that were a second quicker than me, and then you had everyone behind me about a second slower than me, and I was just chilling out, going for a leisurely drive on a Friday night. But this season's much better. Yeah, there's it's a lot more condensed. There's a lot of new faces. Yeah, it's a lot jumbled up, so lots of battles, and it's been brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
And before we let you go, Adam, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? Anyone you want to thank?
You guys for putting the league on. It's like I said, it's nice on a Friday night to have something that's not too stressful to come and race here and have a bit of fun. And then Altitude and our sponsors and partners, Acertech, Freem, Sim Stickers, Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography, Sim Racing Studio, Finding Speed, and Phil Regan. There we go. I think I got them all. I think.
You've fulfilled the contractual obligations, and they can be happy now.
Well, I was asked the same question on Wednesday, and I'm sure I forgot one, but I've literally just gone through a mental checklist. I've got everyone tonight.
But again, mate, as you say, very hard fought P6. We'll let you, get on and do whatever it is you need to do. Obviously, it is starting to get a little bit late here. And we can't wait to see you back next week for Road America, one that I'm sure you in the audience as well do not want to miss. The IMSA series is going to be live with you here. Race number 6 at Road America next week. And, in the meantime, while you're waiting for the IMSA action, why don't you check out the other series that we do? We have the Touring Car Series and the IndyCar Series. Those are on Monday and Tuesday, respectively, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm sure I will get a note in my ear to tell me if that is wrong. But, join us in. It will be live here on the Anti-Stall Racing channel, so you can check out both IndyCar and Touring Car action while you're waiting for next week of IMSA. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure to share the combox with yourself, Edward, and massive shout out to Gerard on the cams as well. It's obviously very difficult in the IMSA series to keep track of all the action, so we want to give a shout out to everyone involved. And yeah, it's awesome, and we can't wait to see you all next week. And I think that's it from us. Well, that's it from me. Edward, you got any other final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a very fun race. Really enjoyed commentating on it. Really enjoyed this multi-class battling. And see you guys next week.
Can't stay with him. Fucking stay with him. Break my bones. Break all the promises, but leave me alone. Don't break my heart.